So this next segment is going to be something, is going to be along the same lines of what we were just talking about in the last segment, but this is much more specifically targeted towards. So it's involving the Justice Democrats, but it's also it's not just between Justice Democrats and like establishment Democrats. Now, to be fair, the ones that they're facing off against here are in my opinion, and in the opinion of many progressives and Justice Dem supporters, are the establishment. But these are black lawmakers. These are members of the Congressional Black Caucus, for short, they're CBC. And this is a group of people, I don't know how many people it is, maybe it's 50 to 100 people, probably. I think all of them, or most of them are, certainly all of them, maybe except one or two, maybe, are Democrats. Two of them, one or two of them, I think, are black members of Congress. I could be wrong on that though, but yeah, like 90-something% of them, 95% of them are Democrats, and these are all people that are beholden to the. In my opinion, they're not. I wouldn't say they're totally, like, they're not right-wing Democrats, but a lot of them are beholden to corporate interests. And I was actually reading I think it was an article that somebody posted on Twitter. I was interacting with a couple of people on there, and somebody posted something about how these specific, CBC members, Congressional Black Caucus members, they started to like slowly over the years, they started giving in more to like the corporate demands of corporate interests, essentially, so big donors. And they slowly but surely, these corporate donors started to give them money, kind of, started throwing them more of a bone, bigger bone, so they kept, trying to appease these black lawmakers more and more in the promises that oh, don't worry, we're gonna, do this even if you support this, let's say, progressive policy. But then, obviously, after they managed to get them on the payroll, essentially, and bribe them, they obviously started to say, okay, if you're not going to support what we're expecting you to support, we're not going to give you money anymore. So I'm sure the black lawmakers kept making their policies appease to their interests and to their demands, and becoming much more right-wing instead of more populist and left-wing. So there's an article here in The Hill, and the title of the article is CBC Lawmakers Rip Justice Democrats for Targeting Black Lawmakers for Primaries. So the CBC got really pissed at the Justice Dems for primarying them. And I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs here, talking about that and kind of going into detail of what several members, some named, some unnamed, and the unnamed people that made comments definitely pissed me off. But we'll get to that in a bit. But let me read this, this part of the article here, or all the parts of the article that are relevant to this topic here. So check it out. It says, Congressional Black Caucus members are furious at Justice Democrats accusing the outside progressive group aligned with Firebrand Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of trying to oust lawmakers of color, specifically African-American lawmakers. Justice Democrats is backing primary challengers to 8-term Representative Henry Cuellar, Democrat of Texas, a Hispanic caucus member, and 10-term Representative WM. What is WM? Anyway, his name is Lacy Clay, Representative Lacy Clay, and he is a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, the same one we're discussing here. CBC. And it says the insurgent group has also made noise this year about challenging Democratic Caucus Chairman Hakeem Jeffries, a CBC member seen as the heir apparent to Speaker Nancy Pelosi. By the way, the last heir apparent to Speaker Nancy Pelosi was Joe Crowley, who ironically got beat by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And Democrats in the establishment, even a lot of CBC Democrats, I would say, are very pissed off that she beat Joe Crowley, because he was the next guy in line. But at the end of the day, it's just like any kind of monster. You cut off the head, another head is going to grow, and they're just going to put somebody else in its place. And apparently that's Hakeem Jeffries, who, by the way, is a big shill to the Israeli lobby and corporate donors and stuff. So he's got his own issues aside from just being a black dude. I mean, that doesn't mean anything, just like it didn't mean anything for Barack Obama, by the way. So continuing on here, it says, and CBC leaders are fretting that Justice Democrats may target other black lawmakers in the coming weeks and months, including Representatives Yvette Clarke, Joyce Beatty. So Yvette Clarke's from New York, Joyce Beatty is from Ohio, Emmanuel Cleaver from Missouri, and Anthony Brown from Maryland. Brown said the group has been making calls in his district, actively trying to recruit a challenger to run against him, something that Justice Democrats denies. That's surprising. And then quoting Gregory Meeks here. So this is another guy that I don't think he's being primaried by anybody yet. By anybody from Justice Democrats yet, but he might be at some point. It says, it just seems strange that the social Democrats, I don't know why he's calling them that, seem to be targeting members of the Congressional Black Caucus, individuals who have stood and fought to make sure that African Americans are included and part of this process. Representative Gregory Meeks, a senior CBC member, told the Hill. He's, by the way, from New York, Democrat from New York. He says, I don't know what that agenda is, but if they want to come after members of the Black Caucus, it's two ways. I'm guessing he means it goes both ways. Warned Meeks, the Queens Democratic Party boss, who clashed with Justice Democrats in a local district attorney race last month. That's referring to Tiffany Caban. Tiffany Caban is the woman that faced Melinda Katz. Tiffany Caban was supported by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Justice Democrats. Melinda Katz was basically represented by the establishment. And apparently Gregory Meeks, this black lawmaker, decided to support Melinda Katz, who was not a black woman. She is a white woman. And she decided, and she ran for the district attorney seat or role in New York, and I think of Queens, I believe. Yeah, that's what it said, Queens. And he decided to support her, and Ocasio-Cortez supported Tiffany Caban, and that kind of started the little feud, the little beef between Ocasio-Cortez and Meeks. So that's kind of what got things. That's what got things started there. Continuing on here, it says Justice Dems decided to respond to these smears and accusations. So let me read this for you guys here. It says Justice Democrats stormed onto the scene last year when one of their little-known handpicked candidates, Ocasio-Cortez, who is Hispanic, unseated then Representative Joseph Crowley, the powerful Democratic caucus chairman, in a New York primary. In a statement, Justice Democrats' executive director, Alexandra Rojas, defended the group's strategy, noting that it has endorsed several candidates of color. One of them is Cori Bush, a registered nurse and Black Lives Matter activist, who is taking on Clay, referring to Lacey Clay, for the second time. We are supporting a black woman who is a community organizer who has taken on police brutality in the St. Louis area, Rojas said. 70% of congressional districts in America have no competitive general election. Primaries are often the only places where voters can have a real say. Barack Obama first ran for Congress in a primary challenge to Representative Bobby Rush, a CBC member. Rojas added, "This is a democracy and voters deserve choices." Amen. Justice Democrats also pointed out that they endorsed Ayanna Pressley, an African-American woman, in her successful primary challenge last year against Democratic Representative Mike Capuano in a Massachusetts district where minorities make up the majority. This cycle, Justice Democrats is also supporting Bronx educator Jamal Bowman, who is black, as he takes on House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Eliot Engel, who is Jewish, and Jessica Cisneros, a 26-year-old Hispanic woman who is running against her former boss, Cuellar, which is Henry Cuellar from Texas. The CBC's allegations are, quote, absurd and more about protecting incumbency over democracy, a Justice Democrat source said. In the last cycle, Justice Democrats backed American Civil Liberties Union activist Sharda Richardson over Representative Stephanie Murphy, a Democrat of Florida, who made history as the first Vietnamese American woman elected to Congress. The group in 2018 also endorsed Bush, referring to Cori Bush, who eventually lost to Clay by nearly 20 points in the primary. This week, the group said they will back Bush once again as she gives another shot in Missouri. So in this next part, it shows how the CBC members, the Congressional Black Caucus members, suddenly decided to cry racism. And this is where the part of this little feud between the Justice Democrats and the CBC members gets ridiculous and honestly, to me, maddening. So check this out here. It says, in an interview in the Capitol, Clay said it was absolutely clear that Justice Democrats are targeting lawmakers of color like himself. He and his father, Bill Clay, have represented the district for the past 50 years, and Lacy Clay called the group's actions insulting to the intelligence of Missouri voters. Okay, so basically what you're saying, first of all, he's being challenged by a woman of color, so that doesn't make any sense. That's just bullshit to say that Justice Democrats is targeting black members of Congress. But then even if that was the case, they're trying to replace you with a black woman. So how are you targeting, how is that racism and how is that targeting, black lawmakers? You're representing one black lawmaker with another black lawmaker. So it's not like you're representing, it's not like you're replacing him with a white lawmaker or even a Hispanic or Asian or throw out any, ethnicity out there. It's a black woman trying to challenge a black man. But another thing Lacy Clay is saying here is he's saying, oh, well, I got this seat from my father. He was handed that seat by his daddy. By his daddy that decided to retire, and he's like, here, son, here's some nice nepotism here for you. I'll just hand over this seat to you because obviously I did so well, and then I'm gonna obviously endorse my own son, and we have the same last name, so obviously people are gonna vote for you. So he's just like, it's just nepotism. The guy doesn't care about, representing the actual people of his district in, Missouri, right? And he's like, oh, I just took my daddy's seat and, God forbid, how dare you take this seat away from me because it's mine. So anyway, he says here, quoting him, it says, they are going after the wrong target. Instead of fighting Republicans and defeating Trump and holding on to our majority, they find it convenient to go after their own, which is to me a bunch of BS. Ooh, yeah, tough guy over here. And then he says and this is the fucking crazy part. He likened Justice Democrats to, quote, Russian trolls of 2016. Trying to sow divisions in the Democratic Party. And then quoting another CBC member, it says, it does make you wonder what's going on, added another CBC member, Robin Kelly. Some names that have been mentioned all seem to be people of color and more so CBC members, but they're replacing them with other black members, you morons. Ugh. And then it says CBC members and some top Democratic aides have questioned who is pulling the strings at Justice Democrats. These people are absolutely insane. Not only are they crying racism, but they're playing the fucking victim. Like, oh my God, how dare you take part in democracy and challenge our primary seats? How dare you, good sir or good ma'am? You're trying to take my seat away from me because I didn't even fucking earn it. I got it from my daddy, and then you're taking this opportunity away from me. I wouldn't be surprised if he's, receiving money from corporate donors. That's really what he's going to miss. Fucking prick. Anyway. So how did this whole thing start? The article details that a little bit here. Check it out. This is stuff we may have already talked about before, and I may have talked about in the last segment or even last episodes too. So here it talks about how So it says just as Democrats spat with the Black Caucus comes amid high racial tensions in the 235-member House Democratic Caucus. Ocasio-Cortez accused Pelosi of singling out, quote, newly elected women of color when the speaker scolded lawmakers in a private meeting Wednesday for tweeting at each other. Pelosi clarified Thursday that her comments were aimed at Chakrabarti, Ocasio-Cortez's chief of staff, who had earlier tweeted that the moderate New Democrats and Blue Dog Coalition should be named the New Southern Democrats. They certainly seem hell-bent to do to black and brown people today what the old Southern Democrats did during the 1940s. Chakrabarti wrote, later deleting the tweet. So I mentioned this in the last segment. But I just want to say one thing, and this is a point that Cenk Uygur of TYT made. He said that the attack on... So the attack from Ocasio-Cortez on, against Nancy Pelosi, so AOC going after Pelosi and saying that this is like a racial thing, and it's like, it's something that, shouldn't be, it should be seen as like as a racist attack. I don't think that was a helpful route to go. And that's what Cenk said. So I'm agreeing with Cenk. But what Cenk said is that, that's not the best way to do it. The best way to frame it is to say this is a political, anti-progressive, essentially, route to go, or to, essentially call out. So that's the route that the Pelosi and the other Democrats are doing. And that's what you should be fighting. So you should be saying you're fighting against progressive change. You're fighting against progressive populism. The policies out there that are popular among the American people, that's what you're attacking. So it's not a color thing. It's not an ethnicity thing. I don't know, honestly, in my opinion, I don't know if it's an ethnicity thing, but I don't think that helps anything. I think, if anything, it just allows Nancy Pelosi, just like she did with Ocasio-Cortez, Tlaib, and I think it was Tlaib, or was it Presley, and Ilhan Omar, doing that, like I said in the last segment, where she took that picture on that magazine cover. That's all Pelosi's going to do. She's going to go and hug herself up against all the black lawmakers, whether men or women, and they're going to say, look, how could it be, how could this be like a race thing? I'm totally, like I said in the last segment, I'm totally inclusive, and, I'm Nancy Pelosi. I love all people, blacks, Hispanic, everybody. I love everybody, all colors and races and genders. Doesn't matter what they are. So it's an easy thing for her to counter. So you should have just gone out there and said, no, you're against progressive change. You're not a racist. You're just against progressives. What progressives want. You're fighting against progressives when you shouldn't be. So I just don't think the race angle really helped AOC's cause there, but I don't know. Hopefully the narrative can be shifted over to, talking about how it is fighting against progressive change, and because Pelosi definitely she can't defend that as easily as she can with the whole the race card. So here are more smears against Justice Democrats. It says a senior House Democratic aide called it ironic and funny that Ocasio-Cortez is accusing Pelosi of attacking women of color when Justice Democrats is targeting minority lawmakers. Quoting a top Democratic aide, she's only a woman of color when it's convenient. None of the things she's fought for aligned with communities of color, and her group is funded only by elitist white liberals. She's a puppet. I want to know who the fuck that person is, because that person is just a dick. They're a fucking dick for saying this, behind the guise of an anonymous quote, and then calling them elitist white liberals, and she's a puppet. That's fucked up, man. And it says the aide then texted an image of a Goomba puppet from the Super Mario Brothers video game. I can't tell you how pissed off people are about the Justice Democrats, the aide added. All these CBC members feel like they are under siege, but it's offensive. It's offensive that these elitist white liberals feel like they can undermine the foundation of our party, African American voters. Dude, one of the fucking candidates. Two of them. Ilhan Omar is black. She's Somalian, but she's black. And Ayanna Pressley is African American. She's black too. Two of the fucking members are black. So when you're talking about these elitist white liberals, that's ridiculous. It makes no sense. I mean, Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley are both black women. They are both black women that are running against, or that are part of the Justice Democrats. Ayanna Pressley and Ilhan Omar, both black women. Now, Ayanna Pressley, she beat Mike Cop 1. I don't know. I guess maybe he was a white man, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure. So based on his name, I can't tell if he's white or maybe he's Hispanic. But whatever he is, he wasn't black. And she defeated him. That's a black woman. Ilhan Omar, I don't know who she defeated, but she won her race. And she's a black woman too. So when you're talking about these people being elitist white liberals, you can call anybody a puppet. A puppet is whatever. But that's bullshit too. But I mean, that's putting aside the puppet remark, because that's just stupid and childish. Calling them elitist white liberals is just ridiculous and offensive. And it's pathetic that you would say that when you know that the candidates that are part of the Justice Democrats are not just white liberals, and the main ones that are well known are not white liberals at all. Now, maybe a couple of the people that founded Justice Democrats. So in regard to Kyle Kalinske of Secular Talk, who, yes, he's a white man, okay, but he's got progressive ideas, so he's a progressive. And then, Cenk Uygur is from, he's Turkish. He was born in Turkey. He's an immigrant from Turkey. Saikat Chakrabarti, he was a former Bernie Sanders operative. He's, I believe he's of... I forgot where Saikat is from, but I'll have to look that up though. If you guys want to check, you want to fact check me on that. But I know he's definitely a man of color. He's an individual of color. He obviously has some sort of background that is not from the United States, which is perfectly fine. The point is that the Justice Democrats, they're a diverse coalition. Their candidates that they represent are diverse. So all this bullshit about people being about how the white liberals are taking over with, among Justice Democrats. It's complete bullshit. And it's really offensive because they're just making shit up and just lying. So when they're the ones that are offended by these so-called elite white liberals, you're the ones who are just projecting. Well, you're not projecting, but you're just making things up, essentially. But in reality, you're the ones who are beholden to elitist white liberals like Nancy Pelosi, basically, and Joseph Crowley, who was beat by a woman of color in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Those are the people that you were sucking up to. But then you're talking about Justice Democrats sucking up to elitist white liberals? Get the fuck out of here. People are fucking assholes, man. I can't stand it. Anyway, so the next part of the article here, specifically the Hill article, because I have another one that I was going to go over, but the Hill article talks about how the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, wants to have a meeting. So it says here, top CBC member Meeks, referring to Gregory Meeks, now is calling for a meeting between CBC leaders and Justice Democrats to find out why they are targeting lawmakers of color. We will have to at some point sit down and see, is this something that is directed at members of the Congressional Black Caucus? Meeks asked. We are going to sit down with whomever the social Dems are. We have to find out who they are, who is really running this show. We have to figure that out. Dude is like fucking paranoid as hell. He must think it's like Russian bots, Russian operatives or something. And then it says, Representative Donald McKeon, a CBC member, said it was upsetting that Justice Democrats appear to be taking aim at so many black lawmakers, especially since they have some of the most progressive voting records in the caucus. Yeah, please name one fucking progressive idea that you have. Oh, you're not anti-gay, and you believe in Obamacare. It says, I think challenging other Democrats in the primary when we're trying to hold on to the majority is wrong, unless the person is so far out of bounds, so far away from Democratic orthodoxy. But that's not what's going on here. McEachin told The Hill. It's disturbing to see challenges to that many CBC members. But see, dude, that's what you don't get. It's not about the Democratic orthodoxy. Nobody gives a fuck about the Democratic orthodoxy. It's about the orthodoxy of progressive ideas. So see, 1 second he said progressive, 1 second he says democratic. So you don't know, because that's the thing. He thinks progressives are Democrats because, Donald Trump is in office and The Republican Party is so far right, that means that we're progressives. No, you're not. You're not fucking progressives. Don't even fucking use that word. This pathetic, these pathetic Democrats in that party, they have hijacked that term. So many, not just the Democrats in the party, but just random activists that support the party have hijacked the progressive label and used it for themselves, even when they're not progressive. All these people like to call themselves progressive, and they're not. I'm a progressive. Kyle Kalinske is a progressive. To some extent, TYT, Cenk Uygur, he's a progressive. Those are, Tulsi Gabbard, that's a progressive. Don't tell me that progressives are a bunch of people that are just because they're black and they supported Obama and they thought Obama was a fucking, he was a fucking progressive, and he's progressive because he, I don't even know why the fuck they say he's progressive, but anyway, whatever it is, all the stupid ass reasons that they give. And don't tell me you're progressive just for those stupid things because you like Obamacare. Obamacare wasn't progressive. Obamacare was a stupid, former policy that was pushed by the Republican Party during the 1990s. It was initially put together, it was put on the platform of Richard Nixon when he was president. It was crafted by the Heritage Foundation. It was put into law by Mitt Romney when he was governor of Massachusetts. Mitt Romney, the guy that ran against Obama in 2012. You're taking his policy and you're calling that progressive. And then you're gloating about passing that policy as if it's so wonderful and it's so progressive. Yeah, you're fucking delusional. You don't know what a progressive is, and just stay the fuck away from that label, please. So I wanted to read one more article, one more parts of an article here. It's just more details about the kind of CBC, Congressional Black Caucus versus Justice Democrats rift. And this is an article from the Daily News. It says, they had a conversation with Gregory Meeks, the same guy I quoted before. It says, Representative Gregory Meeks lobs veiled primary threat against Ocasio-Cortez amid, quote, intolerable feud with Democratic leadership. Excuse me. It says, in an interview with the Daily News, Meeks fumed over Ocasio-Cortez's recent racial beef with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and pushed back against her left-wing allies at Justice Democrats for openly backing insurgent candidates, trying to unseat members of the Congressional Black Caucus. He says, it says, Meeks stressed there weren't any current plans to challenge Ocasio-Cortez, but left the door open. If you get in the ring, expect that people are going to start throwing punches. Do you really want to use a punching reference when referring to a woman that you want to challenge? You really want to use that analogy? Not very smart. But anyway, so here's more from CBC's Meeks. It says, Meeks could also become a target for using his role as Queen's Democratic Party chair to back establishment favorite Melinda Katz over leftist Tiffany Caban in the borough's still undecided district attorney race, which has become a microcosm of the national intra-party battle. I mentioned that earlier. Tiffany Caban and Melinda Katz. And I'm surprised the race is still going on. Hopefully Caban can pull it off. It says, Meeks said that the Justice Democrats and left-leaning lawmakers may be shooting the party in the foot. I would hope that these individuals would realize who the opposition is here, Meeks said, referring to Republicans. The focus should be to keep the majority, grow the majority, and win the presidency. No, that's not the goal. The goal is not to keep the majority, grow the majority. That's not the only fucking goal, dude. You're delusional. The goal is to get progressive progressive candidates in those seats, in your seat, the progressive, actual progressives, the ones that support policies that are actually progressive, not just progressive in name only, and things that help regular people, that help the American people who are suffering, whether they have shitty quality healthcare, whether they, want to go to school and they want to have, free college, they're drowning in student debt, they're working for, a shitty low minimum wage. They want to, work at a living wage or even a $15 minimum wage, which still wouldn't be enough, but would be better. Ending the wars. I don't know. Are you doing anything regarding that, Gregory Meeks? Are you doing anything to end wars, get higher wages, get free college for Americans, get people out of student loan debt, to Get better quality healthcare? No, I doubt it. You're just talking about Obamacare. You just care about Obamacare. And then here's another anonymous source smearing progressives and Justice Democrats. Quoting the anonymous source, it says, Justice Democrats in general are trust fund kids who are funding this with their parents' money. The fuck does that come from? It says the source said, blasting the progressive group as elitist for criticizing black lawmakers from poor districts who take corporate donations. It's offensive for CBC members when these elites are looking down on them when they don't have the financial ability to say, I don't want that money. The hell is he talking about? As for an example, the source pointed to Ocasio-Cortez's chief of staff and Justice Democrats co-founder, Saikat Chakrabarti, a millionaire Harvard graduate who worked on Wall Street before turning to left-wing politics. First of all, let me just stop it right there. How do you know what Chakrabarti believes in? How do you know, maybe Chakrabarti had to go, he's stuck in student loan debt. Maybe he has, millions of dollars of student loan debt. Maybe, how do you know if his parents funded him to go to school? So when you're talking about, trust fund babies and elites and stuff, all of a sudden these people that are pushing for progressive policies, all of a sudden, like Saikat Chakrabarti and, Kyle Kalinske, Cenk Uygur, all of a sudden these people are the elites, but you people aren't. The CBC is bankrolled by corporate interests. Hakeem Jeffries, who is the basically the head of the Congressional Black Caucus, he is corporate funded. He is receiving money from corporate donors. So don't tell me about how the Justice Democrats who are pushing for all the progressive policies that are popular that I've mentioned a million times already in this segment. Don't tell me those people are the elitists. You're the fucking elitists. And it says a spokesman for Ocasio-Cortez declined to comment Friday, but the Justice Democrats took aim at the party establishment on her behalf. Quoting a statement here, it says senior members of the Democratic Party can make whatever false claims they want, but it's clear that their bottom line is no primary challenges. Justice Democrats board members Alexandra Rojas, Demond Drummer, and Nassim Thompson said in a joint statement. And then this is quoting a tweet from Walid Shahid, who is a communications director for Justice Democrats, somebody I follow on Twitter. Many people also follow on Twitter. He also makes a lot of appearances on MSNBC too, by the way, which is good. And he, defends Bernie and AOC and everybody. So he responded in a tweet. So the part that says that the Justice Democrats are trust fund babies and shit, or kids, whatever, it says here, AOC was a bartender, so referring to Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. Ilhan Omar was a refugee. Rashida Tlaib had to raise her siblings. Ayanna Pressley dropped out of college to support her mom who lost her job. Don't do this just to defend the fact that you want to take corporate donations. Exactly. So you're hiding behind a fucking anonymous source, and you're calling everybody elitists, and then in reality you're the fucking elites. And then for the little nice cherry on top, guess who supported Nancy Pelosi in this whole feud? Because Pelosi obviously is on the side of the CBC and defending them and defending establishment Democrats against the Justice Democrats. President Trump came out in defense of Nancy Pelosi, of all people. And then this is quoting Trump. It says, I think Cortez, not even saying Ocasio-Cortez, I think Cortez is being very disrespectful to somebody who's been there a long time, Trump said, cutting off the first half of the congresswoman's last name. I deal with Nancy Pelosi a lot, and we go back and forth, and it's fine. But I think that a group of people is being very disrespectful to her, and you know what? I don't think that Nancy can let that go on. So look at this. You got Donald Trump, the guy who is hated by every single Democrat, essentially, by every single so-called liberal Democrat, so-called fake progressive Democrat. Every single one of those guys every one of those people hate Donald Trump, and look what Donald Trump is doing. He's defending their queen, their Madam Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, and saying like, oh, how dare you, what, I don't know, he said, you're being disrespectful to her. I think he even said at one point that she's not a racist or something, which, okay, fine. Maybe Nancy Pelosi is a racist. I don't know. Maybe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez maybe went a little bit far in saying that. But I mean, I do believe that I think Pelosi does have a lot of tendencies where she doesn't show that she cares for black people. But I don't know if she's actually a racist. But especially since Trump is the actual racist. But anyway, but like, how ironic is it that Trump is the one who has to come out and defend Pelosi? And meanwhile, Democrats still fucking hate him, but he's coming out there and defending him because he wants to maintain the status quo of the party so that obviously the strong populist ideas don't get any attention, God forbid, because we can't have that. If you have that, then the Republicans are fucked over. They know that, even though they talk about socialism and communism, but they know that shit is very popular among people that are suffering right now, so they have to try and maintain the status quo of the centrist establishment policies, basically. So yeah, please, Trump, keep defending Nancy Pelosi. We'd love for you to do that because that only makes her look worse.